Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone is well. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to get the gallery all set up so that you get a spotlight. Where's Jill gone? We'll say hello to everybody in a minute. Okay, here we go. I'm going to spotlight myself and we are good to go. Amazing, brilliant. We are press record. We're letting everybody in. I'm just turn the sound down so that everybody doesn't hear when someone joins. Wonderful, cool. So my name is Emma Goode. I'm the founder of digital marketing agency 24 Fingers. We help small business owners get more digits on their bottom line. We are based in Essex, as you can probably tell from the accent, but we work with people all over the globe. And actually, we've got some of those on the call today. So it's wonderful to see this being streamed transatlantic, shall we say. My guest today is the wonderful Jill Parrott. And I always say this line when I see Jill. Jill is who I want to be when I grow up. She's incredibly inspirational. She has founded an incredible organisation that she's going to be sharing today around sustainability for businesses and why you can be sustainable and make a profit at the same time. So Jill always talks my language. She breaks everything down into really bite-sized and accessible language. And I'm sure she's going to give us so much value today on how to build a good business, and how to create a business with social impact and profit. So small intro there. We are recording the session. If you don't fancy being seen, do feel free to take your cameras off. Jill, I know, is very happy to answer any questions. So do pop them into chat. See this as a networking opportunity as well. So if you want to put in your social media links, please do feel free. Safe space. So ask any question. If you think it's a silly question, I'm sure other people will want to know the answer to. So fire away, pick Jill's brains for the next hour, and over to you, wonderful Jill Parrott.
Thank you ever so much, Emma, for that lovely introduction. I'm going to apologise in advance because you can probably hear I've had a bit of a cough and it's just left me with this sort of funny throat that seems to have flared up just before this meeting. So if I suddenly start coughing, I'll put myself on mute and hand you back to Emma. So hopefully I'll be okay, but it's when I talk too much, it starts it off. And I'm going to talk too much. So a little bit of background about me, just to put it in perspective, not a whole load of stuff. But before I launched Org, I spent 40 years working as with 4 micro and small businesses as a management accountant. And when you're in that role, you're not just number crunching, you're HR, health and safety, project management, etc., etc., etc. So I love small businesses, got a passion about small businesses. And I understand the psyche. So I come from a for-profit approach with a very flexible understanding of what a good business means for a small business. So it's really important. I haven't got a sustainability degree. I speak in normal Essex girl language because I'm also an Essex girl. And although I've worked a lot with the third sector, I haven't got a third sector background. So it's based on reality, everything I talk about today. So, and in terms of good business, I actually suggested the good with the E, because obviously Emma's name, but not just because of her name, because all the values that we'll be talking about today are absolutely embedded in everything Emma does. So she has a highly successful business, but those values, caring about people, caring about the environment, are also very, very much there. So let's talk about, or I ought to say about, I founded the Organisation for Responsible Business Support my husband in 2010. A couple of years ago, we actually gifted it to our members. So it's now a fully member-owned, not-for-profit company, limited by guarantee. I'm also the author of It Really Is Just Good Business, if you want to buy a nice business book. And I'm also on the steering committee of the Micro Business Alliance. So once again, just to stress my passion for the very, very smallest end of businesses, from a sole proprietor freelancer upwards. So let's talk about good business.
Can I ask a question, Jill, before you
Yes.
start? You just mentioned about the smallest of small businesses, and something that I think is a barrier to companies embedding ESG values and aligning themselves with United Nations sustainable goals is the fear of, am I too small to make a difference? So that was one of the questions that I had. And conversely, am I too small to deal with all the paperwork that I have to deal with? So I just wanted to kind of throw those 2 points out when you mentioned small businesses. Does this really work for small, or do we
Yeah,
have to be
absolutely.
big?
No, you are so right. It's interesting because when we launched in 2010, one of the barriers when I was talking to businesses was very much, well, we're too small to make a difference. And I have to say, in the last few years, a lot of people from just consumers, tiny businesses, are beginning to get the message that no one is too small to make a difference. All those little things add up. Let's put this in perspective. There are very roughly, ballpark, about 6 million private businesses in the UK. 99% of those are small businesses. So that's with 0 to 49 employees. So that is almost 6 million. 95% of those are micro businesses with 0 to 9 employees. 74% of those have no employees. So, oh my God, yes, even those tiniest businesses are so important. Even if you are a web developer and you are sitting at your computer all day at home, you can still make a difference. And it's about all those little things multiplied so many times that make a difference. And in terms of paperwork, it's not about paperwork. You know, we have a membership at Orb and a certification. And whilst the certification, and you know, it's not a requirement to do that, the certification is very robust and evidence-based. But it's not all about policies. And actually, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to read something out to you. Someone sent me something this morning about policies. We were talking about a certain certification being very policy focused, but not necessarily looking at the reality as what happened. And he has got something that talks about policies and how they like toilet paper. So I hope you don't mind. I hope you don't think it's a bit crude, but think of it in perspective of this, because I think it's really interesting. Excuse me looking away from the screen because I didn't intend to do this.
No, go for it. We like impromptu.
Yeah, absolutely.
Emily was just saying in chat that she's a sole trader and follower a socially responsible path. Yeah, absolutely. We can how big, how small, we can each play our part. And I think, I mean, we'll come on to this, but I think nowadays, especially as we all work kind of personality driven businesses, we are our own brand. When someone sees you doing that, I think it attracts the right type of client to your business. So somebody that follows Emily will know that she really cares about community, charity, environmental issues. And I think that endears people to the right type of client as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's so important. All right, here we go, everyone. This is from a health and safety expert. So what happens when you're in a prone position and need to use it, but the toilet roll is empty? Panic first and then improvisation. That means think of policies, appropriate policies and procedures are really important. Analogy number 1. Number 2, what happens if you've only got single ply? Well, you definitely need to wash your hands afterwards. Inappropriate and out-of-date documents are invariably worse than useless at best, and dangerous at worst. Analogy number 2. What happens if you use too much toilet paper? It blocks the system. So, Same too with too many policies and or procedures. They also upset the system. Best, less is more, and train people to think for themselves. There you go. What do you all think about that in relationship to policies? No comment from Emma. It's not something that I think it's a good analogy. It puts it really in perspective of what is the purpose of a policy. Use the right policy for the right reason. Yeah, okay.
Because otherwise, if this stuff isn't accessible or easy to implement when you're doing your day job, when you're worried about whether you've paid the VAT return, when you're worried about where the next client is coming from, if none of this stuff can actually be implemented by your average Joanna, you're not going to do it.
No, absolutely. What's the point of having loads of paper that you don't need, that you don't read, that you don't use? It's not appropriate for your business.
Yeah.
It's about being appropriate. So, okay. So what is a good business? Since the year dot, a good business has meant that it's a profitable business. And we mustn't ever forget that profitability is important. Even if you're a social enterprise or charity, you might not want to talk about profit. A company is a not-for-profit technically, but we still have to make a profit because otherwise you're not going to survive. And let's be fair, most small business owners work really, really hard. And quite often the hours that you work, you might be not even paying yourself a minimum wage for a lot of small business owners, and you're entitled to have a good salary. So we must never, ever forget about profitability. But to be a good business and be profitable, you need to have efficient systems in place, don't you? You need to make sure that you meet legislation, otherwise you could be in a really, really bad place. You need to delight your customer, don't you? As part of your reputation. All the basics. Let's move that down a bit. You want to delight your customer. Do you want to delight yourself? Do you want to have a business that you feel good about? Does your business have a purpose beyond profit? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about that reputation? How maybe your family, friends perceive your business? You know, what is it that makes you tick? What is about your business? Have you thought about that? And are you meeting the social and environmental requirements of a modern day business? And that's what Emma was referring to earlier on. So we have said since we launched in 2010, doing good is good for business. And we meant doing all the right things. Never, ever has that been truer than it is. Because whether your customer or potential customer is the consumer or private sector or public sector, increasingly, they want you to be doing all the right things. So what does the right things mean? The social bit. Caring about people. Clearly your employees, if you have employees, your local community, maybe the people in your supply chain, all your stakeholders, your customers. You've obviously got to look after your customers. What about your suppliers? What about all the other people your business impacts? Are you thinking of all those people, all your stakeholders? And of course, with the environment, we hear an awful lot about net zero. And of course, we need to all think about reducing our environmental impact. Well, our carbon, reducing carbon. But actually, it's a lot more than that. We also need to think about biodiversity, waste, landfill, a whole load, air quality, water quality, a whole load of other things. And yes, absolutely, no one is too small to make a difference. Even if you work at home, even if you're a like person working in your home office with your own website business, those same little rules apply that you might think as sort of a private bit, little tiny things. Things like maybe turning the temperature down a degree and putting a jumper on. You might not be in a position to do the full, not air conditioning, the double glazing, the heat pump, all those other things. But there's certain things you can do, little things like not putting too much water in the kettle when you fill it up. Can you just heat your room without heating the whole house? And all of those things are things that are actually going to save you money as well as. So all the things that I have spoken about are all encompassed in that ESG. ESG stands for environmental, social and governance. Obviously, the social bit is the people bit, not the social bit that Emma does as part of her business. Although, that said, internal and external communications are very, very much a part of that, both in terms of obviously marketing your business, which is systems that you need to have in place, and actually talking about the good things that you are doing. One of the things that we are very often see is that people are doing lovely things, good things, the right things, but I'll look on their website, I'll look on their LinkedIn profile, and it says absolutely nothing about it at all. And we really encourage people to do that for 3 reasons. I do believe that if you're doing the right things authentically, absolutely, you've got to be authentic, then you should get the benefits of that, and you will get the benefits of that as long as you are authentic. B, if people are looking to buy your goods and services and are looking to make better choices, if you're not telling them that stuff, how do they know to choose you over your competitor? And C, to me, it's the most important. We collectively need to be showing and sharing that this stuff is not about being soft and fluffy, that it's really important. It should be the norm to care about business, to care about people, to care about society. And the governance bit, of course.
Jill, sorry, can I just go back to the people aspect? I think that really struck out for me during COVID. So when it was the pandemic, we were quite lucky in that we were all home workers anyway. So when they said to us, you've got to be in lockdown, well, for us, it was just a different day. It was just a different week on the calendar. Nothing changed in our working situation. So we were very, very fortunate. But on that first day, I sent out an email to the team. Now, the team work different hours, different continents. We've never met all together face to face. But on that first day, I wrote and said, right, we're in lockdown. We've got different rules per country, but the first thing that always needs to come first is, so the thing that always needs to come first is homeschooling, because we're all parents. So do your work when you can in the evening, catch up when you want. There is no rules and regulations in terms of whether it's 3 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon. I genuinely don't care. When your children need to be homeschooled, that comes first, and I will pick up the slack. And we had an incredibly cohesive pandemic experience because of that. And I think my team felt really supported. Conversely, I had other people that I know that used to phone out their boss and go, I've got a nightmare, kid's sick, can't go to school, I've got to be sharing the laptop or whatever it might be. And their managers literally just went, not good enough, don't we're on deadline, da, 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 da. And it made these people feel very nervous about their job in what was a really testing time anyway. So I was really proud of the way that we kind of managed that. And that 100% goes back to your point about, care for your team, and your team will care for the business, which makes obviously great business sense anyway.
Yeah, you are so right, Emma, and I think we've all heard lots of stories. I mean, my daughter is one of the senior HR people in a very large company, multinational. I forget how many employees they've got now, but they've got several hundred. So she was managing that situation sort of across the world, and their approach was exactly the same as yours. Your commitments in terms of your children, that schooling has got to come first. She would tell people off when they'd say something like, I'm not feeling very well, but I'm working because of, and it's like, no, we'll wait, we'll do it. But just so important. It has to start with your staff, and that whole thing of, yeah, absolutely. If you care about your people, they'll be your best possible shining lights in terms of promoting your business to the outside world. But it makes it a whole much nicer place to work, not just for you, not just for your employees, also it's good for them, but for you as well, because there's no tension, and you've got those good relationships, you've got open relationships where you know that people can come to you if they've got a problem and you can adapt accordingly. And that's definitely always been the starting point for me. I delivered a conference a while ago, which is a sustainability conference for HR people, and someone actually said to me, I was talking about this whole cycle of, if you look after your people, then they'll promote your business and create more profit, and that means you can do more, and with the environment as well, that whole sort of cycle about motivating and engaging your people. One of the ways you can often motivate your people is caring about them, but also some of them might want to get involved in social projects. Some of them might want to get involved in environmental projects. It's a really good way to sort of motivate them. So it becomes part of your corporate social responsibility. This was to a big corporate audience, although that's not my passion. And someone in the audience who worked for a big company actually said to me, she was key in HR, oh, does that mean that I should be able to get some money from the CSR department to support the people? And it was like, well, yes, but why isn't that already happening? Why, if you've got a CSR department, are they actually doing this shiny stuff out there that looks good, shiny baubles, but actually they're not caring, engaging and motivating the staff? And that's why, the corporate world, corporate social responsibility has got such a big, it's not going the right way. We hope it doesn't happen with ESG, but small businesses are very, very different. Someone said, what the CSR department? So that's corporate social responsibility. It's the sort of thing a lot of the big companies had, where they're supposed to be talking about what they are doing for people and the environment. ESG takes it a little bit further because that's the governance aspect. Now, just to talk a little bit about governance. Governance in the corporate world very much relates to the board. So it relates to things like diversity on the board. The top salary is paid to directors as a proportion of the average salary, various things like that. For a small business, governance is, if you look at the directory definition of governance, it's pretty much about what it's about. It's about how you run your business. So that stuff that I was talking about earlier on, about having efficient systems in place, knowing and meeting the legislation, is and communicating internally and externally, just all the things you do to run your business. Even if you are a one-man band, you still need to have systems in place. That's not saying you need to have loads of policies. It needs, you need to have systems in place. So that's the governance. So you can see why actually governance is very much part of being a good business. So that whole ESG element in terms of how that relates to your business is really important. Now, I'd like to quickly touch on net zero, if I may.
Go for it.
Net zero, of course, as we know, is hugely important. I am becoming increasingly concerned because the way it is being spoken about at the moment, people are getting bored to tears with it, but more importantly, a lot of businesses, slightly larger businesses, are treating it as a tick box exercise. I want to get that nice logo, that nice mark. So we'll buy a couple of electric cars and we'll plant some trees, do some offsetting and tick, we've got that nice thing. They're not even seriously thinking about all the aspects of their business where they can cut their carbon impact, they're not talking with their people about it. They're not talking about that with their customers and suppliers. So that they're moving their focus in the wrong direction. And I think to the extent that the rhetoric is becoming counterproductive. And what we're saying is we all need to take a holistic approach, because at the end of the day, we talk about saving the planet. The planet will survive. It's about making sure that we have a home, an earth, that is suitable for future generations to live on. And of course, trying to reduce the impact of carbon is hugely important. But it also needs to be a nice, diverse planet. We also need to make sure that, we haven't got piles of landfill and fumes, and importantly, we need to make sure that we haven't got a broken society. We've got quite a broken society at the moment. We need to move the focus back to people. And I don't think doing that will slow down net zero. I think it will speed it up. Because if you're caring about people, if you can have those conversations, pushing it all together, it's more likely to impact people because they feel valued and they'll start to think, what can I do? What role can I play? Emma, I think you're about to say something.
Yeah, we've had this chat actually before, and I'm conscious of this. So one of my big passions in life is skiing. I've skied for a really long time. It's my thing in life, and I'm going skiing shortly, counting down the hours. Obviously, year on year, the seasons are changing. There's less snow, and from a really selfish point of view, I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen on the planet? And I can't ski. You and I had a conversation once where there was somebody about to launch a very unenvironmentally friendly product, and you and I had that conversation. As humans, we are, I guess, can be inherently selfish and only think about how all this stuff affects us, affects our lifestyle, affects our business. What would your advice be about not keeping yourself in check, but traveling on a plane? Massive passion on mine. Skiing, massive passion on the plane. Neither of those are great in terms of emissions. I think of how much energy the ski lift costs, but I love skiing. As a business owner and also as a human being, what kind of checks and balances would you say? Because we've all got our own things that we love.
We have absolutely.
And I know you're saying, yeah, and I know that you're not saying, we've all got to sit around wearing caftans and eating mung beans and that kind of thing. How do you balance that both as a business owner and as a human being, as a person as well? If that makes sense.
That makes absolutely total sense. And I'll be the first to put my hands up and say, look, guys, I'm a long, long way from perfect. I'm of a generation where you're sort of quite stuck in habits, and I'm not flying. There's a lot of things I'm not doing, but there's a lot of things I know I could do an awful lot better. I think the most important thing is exactly what you've done, Emma. Just be absolutely honest. And it's one of the things, again, with businesses of all shapes and sizes, whether you're a big corporate or one-man band, when you talk about, if you're talking about the environment, say, these are our policies. I'm not perfect and I do this, or we're working towards this, whatever it is, but never, ever try and cover it up. We've all got our little weaknesses. None of us is perfect. If you were saying to me, well, I like flying every single weekend off to just a different city just for the fun of it, I'd say, well, I think maybe you ought to reconsider that. There's lots of nice places. But, if you have a passion for skiing and that's your thing, you work hard, that's something that you do. Now, I was talking to someone the other day, one of our fairly new members, who's very passionate about the environment. But he has a partner that lives in another country. So naturally, they fly backwards and forwards to each other. And he said, that does bother me. But it's where he is in his life. And it's trying to make those conversations. And I think it's really important that we don't put ourselves into a guilt trip. There is a lot of eco anxiety around, especially for a lot of the younger people. And I think it's acknowledging that we do what we can. It's that awareness. So, for example, with our if you want to apply for membership of org, when there is a process, there's a little questionnaire that takes about 10 minutes that gets you just to think about where you are and just answer a few questions. If you want to, but you do also have to have a chat with me so we can make sure values are aligned. If you want to do our certification, the top level flagship responsible business standard certification, it's very robust and evidence-based, and it covers 6 sections. So we've got workplace, if you've got employees, environment, marketplace, community, ethics, values and transparency, that's communication, and a light touch on business processes. If you want to do that certification, it's a requirement that you first go through our course. Now, that course is designed in a way not to say, this is the question, this is the benchmark, are you doing? If you can, you get 2 marks, whatever. It's designed to get you to think about each question and how that relates to your business. So I think that's the process that we all need to go through. You don't necessarily need to go through our course. It's just an online course that you work through on your own. But it's a really useful tool to help you think about it, because it's a thing that we don't do. I mean, I've spoken a lot about websites just as an example, but some of you will know that actually IT in general, there's no smoke coming out of our computers or our phones, hopefully not. And we don't think that uses any carbon, but actually it's huge, and it's getting huger all the time. So there's things that we can do to minimise that, and website design is one of those things that a lot of people don't think about. Where you put your money, your bank accounts and things like that, is another thing that a lot of people don't think about. So it's about just what is appropriate for your business. So if we go back to, if you've got employees, maybe you just got 1 employee. So there's certain things that you do need to do. You'd need to have, for example, an employer's liability insurance. There's a question about well-being in the workplace. What you might do for 1 employee might be just, as Emma said, that flexibility, those relationships, things like that. But if you've got 1 employee, what we would expect when our external auditors are looking at that and going through the certification, the evidence process, is a process called ASTI, appropriate for the size, type and impact of the business. So what we'd expect for 1 person with 1 employee to be doing is going to be vastly different than if they've got 11 employees, 1,100 employees, etc. So if you haven't thought about what is appropriate for you, what you can do, then that's where you need to start. And there'll be some people that we've got a lot of members that are really full on in terms of the environmental scene and really, really proactive. And we've got Emma's, we've got others. So this is Emily, I am Emily here today, whose main focus is very much on the local community. And that's all good. You need to be thinking about all of it. But, if it's just you can't be perfect in everything. But you do need to think about it.
That's very reassuring, Jill. I liked when you touched on the younger generation. I see in my business, my son, some of you might know, my son Lewis, really conscious of how his business treats CSR, ESG, and does things like tree planting, offsetting, and makes a really kind of where he's built it into his business values like 100% in a way that me at 21 just did not have a clue. And I think back, I started my career in publishing, very, very, very different environment. And certainly, you'd be horrified at some of the stories that I could tell. And I'm really pleased that kind of generationally things are shifting and the younger kids are so much more aware. But I think with that does come, I see it in him, does come like you say, not a preoccupation, but a nervousness of, am I doing enough? Should I be doing more? And to hear you say, actually, a 1% incremental difference is great. The fact that you're sitting there reviewing what you're doing and always striving to be learning, always striving to be better in inverted commas, does take the pressure off somewhat, especially when you're of my generation where, I remember one of my friends went through an apprenticeship. The day that he got his apprenticeship completed, banged out, they used to call it, he got paralysed at work through a kind of misadventure. Wasn't on purpose, obviously, but he got crippled, and that's a lifelong injury. And thank God that would not happen nowadays. But it just shows you, and that wasn't so long ago. That was like 20 years ago. But thank God things are changing.
Things have changed an awful lot, and there's in terms of health and safety. The big irony is that in terms of the construction with the big corporates, their health and safety is normally superb, and they actually have minimal accidents, minimal serious accidents, and a death is an absolute rarity, whereas that wasn't the case. The ones most likely to have accidents in the construction industry are the tiny businesses, especially sole traders, because they'll take risks.
Yeah. I bumped into a guy in Gales the other day, and he was walking a bit funny, and he asked me to look after his laptop while he went to the bathroom. It took him a really long time to walk to the bathroom, so we started chatting when he come back, and basically he was like roofer or scaff or something like that, and he was older than me, and basically said, "Oh yeah, I fell off my ladder and I don't know what he'd done, like broke his spine, or basically he couldn't walk, and it'd taken him like 6 to 9 months to get to the point where he could walk again." And I was like, "Oh, did you have insurance?" He's like, "No." So sole trader, no insurance, living off savings, tough.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, if you are a sole trader, um, if you were to do our course, for example, you could technically miss out the workplace bit, but I would suggest you work through it and think about it as you, as the employee, and how you're looking after yourself, your own well-being. It's a bit like that airline analogy, isn't it? Where they say with the gas mask, always put
Mask, yeah.
yourself first, because you can't help anyone if you haven't you can't breathe. And it's just the same in your business. She says, um, not not practicing what she preaches, but actually, guys, you do need to look after yourself. You do need to think about your own health and well-being. I know it's a really tough time for an awful lot of small businesses at the moment, and I'm seeing a lot of pressure, stress around. Sometimes it's coming out in, they're already under financial stress, but it's very much the fear for most people of not knowing what's around the corner. We are in a very unstable society, both
Politically as well, and the war and everything.
yeah, on so many different levels, on a just a pure business level. I mean, I was quite shocked last night. One of my favorite companies is Adnams. I don't know if any of you
Yeah.
it's a lovely company.
You talk about the brewery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's the brewery, but they've also got a load of hotels and retail outlets. So it's a very big concern. But corporate social responsibility is genuinely very much at the core of what they do. If you ever get a chance to look around their brewery and so forth and see what they've done, it's magnificent, and caring about people, that whole thing. but it was actually on BBC News last night that they're looking for external investment because they lost something like £2 million last year. I mean, you know, that industry has been really, really hard hit from the smallest local pub upwards, and no one is immune from it. And it just makes you think, you know, I know a lot of small businesses are struggling, but it isn't just small businesses. It's a very, very difficult time. And Emma and I had this conversation before we started to talk. Historically, you know, I've been around for quite a long time. And whenever there's been this sort of time recession or whatever it is, whenever there's been this sort of uncertainty around, the two things that people tend to cut are training and marketing. And now the thing that's added to that is this whole social and environmental bit, when actually they're the three things that you probably should be focusing on most. There's an expression that says, make the most of a good recession. I don't think there's such a thing as a good recession. But actually what it means is maybe you're not so busy with your normal work, but use that time on making sure you are stronger for the comeback. So think about any training that your staff might need. That doesn't mean you have to necessarily pay for it. It doesn't have to be external training, but you know, there might be training that you can help them do. Marketing, absolutely. You know, it should be a top priority. Authentically, of course, there's lots of different ways that you can do that. And of course, we have the expert here. And also the social and environmental bit. Get yourself as, you know, ready to show that you are meeting these. History also shows that those businesses that embrace social environmental considerations are the ones that will bounce back quicker. So are you doing those right things authentically? You know, if you're just doing it to make yourself look good, in today's society, people will we'll see through that.
Yeah. I have a question, Jill. 100% agree about authenticity, and it's true on social media as it is in real life. People can like sniff that out, and yeah, it's not a good look. So let's just say you're a micro business owner, you are juggling the accounts, you're being your salesperson, chief bottle washer upper, cleaner, like absolutely everything in your business. You've got limited resources, you've got limited time, you can't go and hire a ESG consultant, you know, the buck stops with you. Is there a kind of top 10 actions that you would say do those first and then the rest can be phase two? Is there one thing that you think is more paramount than others? Like, what would be your starting point for the busy business owner, basically?
Are you talking about generally or just on the social environmental side or ESG side?
Just like everything in terms of
Okay, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say there's one size fits all. You know, but think holistically. You know, you need to sit down and you know, again, I would say that course is a really, and it's not. I'm not meant to be. I'm not intending to do this to sell the course. It's only £15. I'm not going to make loads of money out of it, but it just really does help you think and focus. Hasn't got everything in it, so it hasn't got the things like marketing, but there's a lot of stuff. There's legislation that says best practice, so it's the best practice stuff that will help you sort of really, really think about it. I say there isn't communication. There is in terms of the whole internal and external communications type thing, but you know, every single business, especially micro businesses, every single micro business is different. There isn't a one size fits all. So you need to start by thinking about where you are now, what your challenges have been, what your weaknesses have been, where you think you can move forward. It might be tweaks, or you might just feel that actually you need a complete new think about the products and services you are offering. And there's a conflicting message here that says, don't give up, persevere. but at the same time, be able to recognise if it's the time to maybe pull the plug on your business. So you need to be able to do both. Don't just give up at the first hurdle. I mean, I could tell you, we nearly did with my business 14 years ago. We hit huge financial problems literally just after we'd launched because the bank had agreed to certain amounts of loans for us to bring in the people, graduate level people we needed to build the business, and that was all agreed in principle. And then, you know, I'm going to say we went to the bank and asked them. This is 2010, so it was just after the crash. And our business manager said, "Yeah, fine, I'll put paperwork through." And it came back, "No, because you're not enough trader." But our business plan shows this. So we were thrown out immediately, and we hit really tough times very, very quickly. And it was my 60th birthday the year that we
It's your 21st, Jill, stop it.
21st, sorry, yeah, I got that wrong. The year that we launched. And the day, and it happened to fall on the bank holiday Monday, and on the Tuesday, I sat back at my desk and I felt really sorry for myself because I've worked hard, got this business going and really struggling, couldn't see where we were going to get out of it. And Mike at that time worked in, because the two of us launched it, we worked together, worked in one of the other bedrooms as his office. We work in the same room now. It's pretty much retired, but and I started crying. And I'm one of those people, when you cry, I go red very, very quickly, so you can see him crying. And I thought, I'm just going to have to go and tell him that we're going to have to pull the plug on the business, and we'll have to sell the house because we've put that up as collateral, and probably live in a caravan, but I can't see a way out of it. And I knew, absolutely knew 100%, whatever I said, he would support me. So I walked out to the landing to go into his room next door at the same point at which he walked out. And he walked out with his head down, didn't even look at me, because if he had, he'd have seen. And he said, "I don't know what's wrong. I feel really, really ill. I need to go and lay him down," which is quite unusual. So I just said, "Oh, all right, love, hope you feel better soon." And off he went. And I sat down and I thought, someone up there is saying, "Oh, no, you don't. You will just get on with this." And we worked through the pain, and it was painful. And Mike didn't even know that story. No one knew that story for about 18 months.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Jill. And that's why Jill Poet is Jill Poet. I love it. You segued me really nicely there into money. Some of you might know I'm launching a AI tech-based product. So I will be going into investment pitches and doing investment rounds, etc. But hopefully quite soon. If you're a pre-seed sort of startup business and you need investment, what are investors looking at nowadays with in terms of ESG and CSR within your business plan? Or, and you know, we can talk openly, is it something that investors are looking at as a cursory tick box thing? Are they looking at it's included, or do they deeply care that your business is embedded in those values?
I think a lot of it, they do genuinely care. Their approach to how they look at it isn't always right because they haven't always got the knowledge to understand, you know, if they come out of the third sector, they're not necessarily aware that there can be a propensity to tick boxing and, you know, policies and that aren't actually being fulfilled. But yeah, it's definitely on the radar. And if you think about where ESG comes from, the history of ESG is that it does come from the investing world, in the corporate world, that very big financial investment sphere. And the philosophy behind that was very much that because this stuff is increasingly important, if they're not, you know, if, for example, they were looking at investing in a company that had a huge supply chain in the Far East, and something like the Bangladeshi collapse was, you know, might happen. That that would knock the shares down immediately if they had that sort of crisis, or if there was a reputational thing on social media or any of those things. So that's where ESG came from in the corporate world for investing, because it's a risk if you are not following that whole ESG type of platform. It's a risk. So that still very much applies today, that it's a risk if you're not doing the right things, but also they're bringing into it, it's a moral obligation to do the right things. So yeah, it is important. Generally, they'll want you to just put that in your brief, answer those questions, but it will vary very much how they frame it, what you want to talk about.
That's
And
amazing.
actually, increasingly, with a lot of awards, that is very much part of the raison d'etre.
Amazing. Second question, leading on to that. As I get older, with a significant birthday coming up, I'm finding paperwork, kind of due diligence and all that kind of stuff really quite challenging to focus on. I don't know why. I used to be fine at that kind of thing, and I'm just like really not now. Again, what certification, I can't talk, can you say that word? I can't say it. Certification.
Certification.
Thank you. Should obviously yours, but what other stuff should people be thinking about in their roster of I should go for that certification and I should do this, or is it not mandatory? Like what would you say? Because I reckon, I don't know this, but I reckon there's companies out there that are kind of selling the dream in terms of you need this tick and you need that tick and it's going to cost you this and da da da. And then suddenly business owners are thinking, oh my God, what have I got to pay for now?
Yeah, you need to be very careful with certifications, accreditations, whatever you want to call them. It is a mire out there. There is one, for example, where tick yes to 10 questions and they'll say you are accredited. To me, that's a pledge, not an accreditation. There are some very good certifications out there. Historically in procurement, the ISOs 14001, 9001 have been the thing, but they're sort of moving away from that. But it's very much you thinking about who your potential client is and what your potential client might be most interested in. Not everyone needs certifications. I don't think that it's a necessity for you to do that. But if you go for the appropriate certifications and there's a robustness behind them, they are going to be good for your business. Now, you might have a client base that is particularly interested in the environment. So you might just want to look at some sort of environmental certification. Maybe the community, you're very locally based, so the community is more important to you. I've spoken a lot about our responsible business standard, which is the big flagship one that's got 6 sections. We've also got a social value community one, which is a certification for what you are doing in the local community, which is really, really important. And again, it's not about money. It's not about money at all. Again, it's about looking at it in perspective of what is appropriate for a small local business. That started off as actually we had an award in Southend that we introduced, which was called the Southend can't think what it was called now, charter, social value charter, where the local authority was also engaged with it, but we've actually got it now as a national online certification. But it is all about what you're doing in the local community, and it has to be appropriate for your business. Clearly, if you look at what, again, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about small businesses, if you look at what small businesses do in the community, most will be doing something, to some level, even if it's just a bit of mentoring, a little bit of gifting for events or whatever it is. There's so many different things that you can be doing. the big corporates will talk about their corporate social responsibility and what they are doing to support, communities. Often they don't work on a local basis, which they really should do. But actually, if you look pro rata at what they are doing with maybe 1,000, 2,000, however many thousand people, to what a sole proprietor is doing, there's often no comparison whatsoever. So all those big shiny baubles don't really count.
Ain't so shiny. Jill, we've got 4 minutes left, so I wonder whether we could invite. I could talk to you all afternoon. I wonder whether we could invite anybody to leave any ask any questions they might have. Feel free to take yourself off mute and camera if you want to chat or pop it into the chat, because I know that Jill would be more than happy to answer your specific questions about your own businesses. That has been just so insightful. And for me personally, like, you always take the fear out of stuff and you make it seem like, yeah, I could actually do this in my own small way, my own community. You know me, Jill, I'm on to world domination, but I'll start with Brentwood. I'm not even joking. Any questions for Jill before we finish up? And Jill, would you like to tell us more about how people can join you as members at ORB and kind of organise that first initial chat?
Yeah, the easiest thing, if you just Google Organisation for Responsible Businesses, and you'll find it, and the contact details are on there. So, feel or connect with me on LinkedIn. Mike and I got married 7 years ago, but I've kept my surname from my previous marriage because there's not many Jill Poets around, but there would be lots of Jill Wilsons around. So you can find me on LinkedIn very easily. So do connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can do the little questionnaire on the org website without actually any commitment to join. So that's quite a nice little thought-provoking process.
Amazing. Well, I have to reiterate, there is only one Jill Poet. Jill, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody to take an hour out of their schedule. I know it's a busy time for everybody. Do connect with Jill on LinkedIn. Do check out ORB. And I know that we've got members on the call today that would really vouch for the difference it's made in their business. Jill, thank you so much. Love to you and Mike. And thank you. I'll be popping this onto YouTube and sending out the replay so that you can hear more and catch up at your leisure too. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us today.